I had never expected this kind of life. The kind of life that is full of secrets and lies, where everything you believe in turns out to be an illusion. My name is Clara, and I am a woman who has loved two men. One, the man I thought I would spend my whole life with, and the other, the one I never imagined would change everything. It all started when Jason, my husband, enlisted in the army. He was strong, brave, and everything I had dreamed of. We were young, in love, and I thought we would have forever. He was leaving for a deployment, and I was left behind in the house we had built together, in the life we had promised each other. As the months passed, the letters stopped coming. I found myself isolated and lonely. Jason's absence created a hole that I didn't know how to fill, and in that emptiness, I found solace in the most unexpected way. Ethan, Jason's older brother, was a constant presence in my life. He was my rock, the one who checked in, the one who helped me around the house, the one who made sure I was okay when the nights felt too long. Ethan and Jason had always been close, despite their differences. Jason was the soldier, the one who would charge into danger without hesitation, while Ethan was more quiet, more reserved, but there was always an unspoken bond between them. As weeks turned into months, Ethan became my confidant. I began to lean on him more than I should have, and that dependency, that need for companionship, quickly crossed a line. One night, during a particularly hard storm, I found myself wrapped in Ethan's arms, seeking comfort, and it was a moment I could never take back. But I never thought it would lead to more. One night turned into another, and before I knew it, I was pregnant. I couldn't believe it. The fear, the shame, it all hit me like a tidal wave. How could this happen? I had just been with my husband, Jason, the week before he left. But now, here I was, pregnant, and I didn't know who the father was. Was it Jason, my husband, or Ethan, his brother, the man who had become my confidant, my lover in secret? I couldn't tell anyone, not even myself. I hadn't told Jason about the pregnancy yet. He was still overseas, and I wasn't sure what to say. I thought of all the possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. What if it was Jason's baby? What if it was Ethan's? And if it was Ethan's, how would I ever explain it? How would I live with the truth? As I stood in front of the mirror, my hands resting on my growing belly, I wondered how this would change everything. My life with Jason, my life with Ethan. How would it all come crashing down when the truth was revealed? I felt trapped, caught in a web of my own making, too afraid to speak the truth, and too terrified of what would happen if I did. Jason returned from his deployment 6 months later. He was a different man. War had changed him, hardened him, and I could see the distance between us. He looked at me, but his gaze felt colder, more distant. Still, he smiled when he saw my belly, and my heart ached with guilt. "Almost time, huh?" he said softly, his hand resting on my stomach. I nodded, but inside I was screaming. I didn't know what to do. Jason thought the baby was his. Ethan never once let on that he might be the father, and I didn't want to confront him. The silence between us was suffocating. Days passed, my belly grew, and the fear stayed with me, gnawing at the edges of my mind. The truth was coming, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to face Jason, and I certainly wasn't ready to face Ethan. I loved them both. And yet, in that love, I had lost myself. I was still wrapping my head around being pregnant when the pain started. Not the physical kind, but the kind that eats at your chest, the kind that whispers, "What if it's not his?" Jason was still away. Deployment had been extended. I hadn't heard his voice in weeks. Every kick reminded me I was carrying a secret even I didn't fully understand. Because I didn't know, not for certain, if the life growing inside me was my husband's or his brother Ethan's. Ethan had pulled away since that night. He still came by, brought groceries, fixed the leaky tap, checked in like a shadow of Jason. But something had shifted. He stopped lingering, stopped looking at me like I was breakable. Until the night I went into labor, he was the one who drove me. I remember gripping the side of the seat, breathing through the pain, trying not to scream. His hands clenched the wheel like he was holding in more than just fear. We didn't speak. Not until we were in the hospital room, and the nurse asked if he was the father. He hesitated. I jumped in. "No, my husband's overseas." The nurse nodded and left, and then Ethan looked at me, really looked at me. "Clara, if it's mine, I just need to know." I shook my head. "It's not," I whispered. "Look at him. He looks just like Jason. And it was true. When our son was born, he had the same soft blonde hair, the same ocean blue eyes, even that tiny birthmark behind his left ear, just like Jason. Ethan stared at the baby for a long time, then he nodded. Right, he said. I guess I just needed to hear it. But deep down, I wasn't sure. Not yet. Not until a DNA test, not until time revealed more. I just convinced myself, and maybe that was enough, for a while. Jason returned when our baby was 3 months old. He held him like he'd been waiting his whole life. The tears that fell from Jason's eyes soaked our son's tiny cotton hat. He's perfect, he whispered. He's ours. I didn't sleep that night. Jason stayed home longer that time. The army let him breathe. I watched him fall in love with fatherhood, watched his hands become softer and his voice gentler. We made love again. And I got pregnant again. This time, I knew the father. It was Jason's child. No doubt, we named her Lily. She looked just like me. Family life bloomed in ways I hadn't expected. Photos lined the hallway. Christmases came and went, birthdays, first days of school. Ethan drifted from our lives after Lily was born. I told Jason he was just busy, starting over. Jason seemed to believe it. Or maybe he didn't want to ask questions he wouldn't like the answers to. There was one night, though, when it almost fell apart. Jason came home early from work. I was in the backyard talking to Ethan. Too close, laughing about something that wasn't funny. Jason stood frozen at the door, watching us. His jaw clenched. When Ethan left, Jason confronted me. "What's going on, Clara?" "Nothing," I said too fast. "You were laughing. With him, the way you used to laugh with me." I walked up to him, pressed my hands to his chest. "You're being silly," I said gently. "He's your brother. He's just checking in." He stared at me for a long time. I don't like how it feels. I leaned up and kissed him. "I love you, Jason. Stop chasing ghosts." And that night, I made love to him like I meant it, because I did. But I also hated myself. Years passed. The kids grew up. Our son looked more and more like Jason. The same build, the same charm, even the same laugh. Ethan disappeared from our lives altogether. I didn't know where he went. I thought maybe I'd outrun it. Until Jason got sick, and everything we'd buried started clawing its way to the surface. Jason had been home for years by then. After over a decade of deployments, service, sacrifice, and war, he finally stayed. We settled into a rhythm that felt like peace, even when I didn't deserve it. Our kids were growing faster than I could catch my breath. Lily had just turned at 18. A quiet, focused soul, sharp like father, always reading, always questioning. And Noah at 20 was full of fire, wild curls, quick wit, and a laugh that reminded me of summer storms, loud and sudden, but somehow comforting. They adored their father. Every weekend, they played chess or fixed things around the house together. Jason was the kind of dad who showed up, always, even with the ghosts trailing behind him. Even on the hard days when the noise in his head was louder than anything in the room. And yet, even with the warmth in our home, a part of me lived in the shadows. I hadn't seen Ethan in years. Not properly. After Jason came home for good, Ethan distanced himself, claiming work, travel, distraction. I never questioned it. I think we both knew the truth, whatever fire we had burned out the second Jason's boots hit American soil. Still, every so often our eyes would meet across a family barbecue or holiday dinner, and something old and buried would flicker, a glance too long, a silence too heavy. But we never said a word. I had built a life on silence. Jason's illness started small, a persistent headache, a skipped meal, a pale look I tried to chalk up to stress. He'd shrug it off, kiss me on the cheek, say, "Just tired, baby, don't fuss." But it got worse. He started forgetting things, small things at first, then big ones. One night, he drove Lily to the grocery store and forgot where he parked. She stood in the lot for nearly 20 minutes before Lily found him, trembling. We took him to the hospital. They ran tests, scans, blood work. The doctor sat us down in a room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. It was leukemia, advanced, aggressive. Jason just nodded. No tears, no panic, just that steady, soldier calm. I held his hand, squeezing it tight, as if I could stop the diagnosis from settling into our bones. "They'll need to test the kids," the doctor said. "A stem cell transplant from a close relative is our best shot." We agreed immediately. Of course we did. Noah and Lily were tested the next morning. I remember the nurse smiling kindly, unaware she held the key to a secret I had locked away for 2 decades. A week passed, then came the call. The children were not matches. Neither of them. I blinked. Not even one? The doctor hesitated. It's unusual, but more than that, the blood types don't match, not even close. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, don't match? The doctor leaned forward, eyes narrowing. I'm sorry, Mrs. Turner, but this is more complicated than we thought. You'll need to talk to your son. I felt my world tremble. What are you saying? Could they both be? No, he said gently. It's highly unlikely. But there's something you need to explain. The blood type issue is rare, but it isn't impossible. You need to speak to them, and soon. The weight of the room pressed against me. What do I tell them? What do I say? You'll know what to do, the doctor said quietly. He stood and left me with that terrifying silence. That night, dinner was supposed to be normal, but everything felt off. Jason was seated at the head of the table, flipping through his mail, as if the weight of the world hadn't just been placed on our shoulders. Lily, always quiet, seemed distracted. But Noah? Noah was different. After a few minutes of awkward silence, he slammed his fork down on the table, his face flushed with frustration. Mom, he said, his voice thick with confusion. What the hell is going on? Why aren't we a match? I'm supposed to be his son. Why isn't my blood good enough? The table fell silent. Jason looked up, his face pale, but there was a tinge of confusion in his eyes. Lily's gaze flickered between the two of us, unsure of what was happening. I opened my mouth to speak, but Noah cut me off. Are you hiding something from me? I can't. He stopped, his hands gripping the edge of the table, his eyes searching mine, filled with a raw, unfiltered emotion. I swallowed hard, feeling the walls closing in. Noah, it's complicated. I stopped myself before I said too much. You need to give me time to explain. Jason's face twisted in confusion. Clara, what's going on? Why is Noah so upset? I stood, my heart pounding. Just please, let me explain to the kids. But Noah stood too, his hands shaking. No, I need to know now, Mom. His voice cracked, his anger building. Why is my blood not a match? I look just like him. I'm his son, aren't I? Lily stayed silent. Finally, Noah looked at his father, his expression growing darker. I'm supposed to be yours, Dad, right? Jason's face tightened, but he held back his own questions. He waited, as always, for me to handle it. I closed my eyes, my body trembling with the weight of the truth I'd been hiding for so long. Noah, I couldn't finish the sentence. The truth was too much, too cruel. Just tell us, Mom, Noah insisted, the anger and confusion mixing with a deep, guttural pain. Tell us the truth. The tension in the room was thick, suffocating, as Noah stood in front of us, his face flushed with anger and confusion. I look just like him, he shouted, slamming his fist against the table. How is it possible that my blood doesn't match his? Whose blood do I have, Mom? Jason's expression shifted from confusion to concern, his eyes flickering between me and Noah, but he said nothing. This was my moment to explain, but the words stuck in my throat. Mom, Noah said, his voice softer now but laced with pain, I need to know the truth. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but I couldn't. Not yet. Noah, yeah. Before I could continue, Jason stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Enough. What is going on here? Why is he acting like this? His voice was rising now, his patience wearing thin. I turned to him, my heart heavy. I don't know what to say. It's complicated. Complicated? Noah's voice cracked with frustration. I'm supposed to be your son, Dad. Why isn't my blood good enough? I looked at Jason, at the pain in Noah's eyes, and I knew it was time to tell them. But just as I opened my mouth to speak, the front door slammed. Noah was leaving. I watched him storm out of the house, his footsteps heavy and fast on the gravel driveway. My heart twisted as I felt the door shut behind him with a finality that echoed through the silence. Jason stared after him for a moment, then turned to me. Clara, this isn't how it's supposed to be. I nodded, my chest tight with guilt. I know. We stayed up for hours, arguing, talking in circles. Every time I thought I was close to telling Jason the truth, I froze. It was easier to stay in the shadows, pretending everything was fine, but it wasn't. And now, Noah knew there was something more, something I couldn't keep hidden any longer. I don't even remember exactly when we fell asleep. We were both exhausted, emotionally drained from the fight, the fear, and the guilt pressing down on us. The house was silent, the kind of silence that was suffocating in its own way. Then in the middle of the night, the phone rang. I jolted awake. the sound of the ring like a slap to my senses. My heart was pounding as I reached for the phone, my hands trembling. "Hello?" I answered, my voice hoarse. "Mrs. Turner?" The voice on the other end was urgent. "Is this Noah's mother?" I felt my blood run cold. "Yes, what happened? Is he okay?" "Ma'am, there's been an accident. It's serious. We need you to come to the hospital immediately." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. "Accident? What happened to my son?" The voice on the other end hesitated. "We don't have many details, but he's in critical condition. You need to come now." My vision blurred as panic set in. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I'll be there," I managed to say before hanging up. Jason stirred next to me, his groggy voice cutting through the panic. "Clara, what's going on?" I could barely get the words out. "It's Noah. He's been in an accident. He's in the hospital." Jason sat up, wide awake now. "What? When? How? Why didn't we hear from him?" I don't know. I was shaking, my breath coming in short gasps. I don't understand. He was fine. He was fine when he left." Jason quickly got dressed, his face pale with worry. We both rushed out the door, the world outside still dark and cold as we drove to the hospital, neither of us saying a word. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that this night, this moment, would change everything. By the time we arrived at the hospital, it was nearly dawn. We were ushered into the emergency room, where the doctors and nurses were moving swiftly, talking in low voices. My heart was pounding so loudly in my chest I could barely hear them. One of the doctors approached us, his face grim. "Mrs. Turner, your son was in a car accident. It's serious. He has multiple fractures, and he's in a coma. We're doing everything we can." The world tilted on its axis. I could feel my knees giving way, and Jason had to catch me. "Is he going to be okay?" Jason asked, his voice strained. The doctor shook his head. "We can't say yet. We need to run more tests, but we're doing everything we can to stabilize him." The fear in my chest was suffocating, but I forced myself to nod. Please save him." Jason's hand gripped mine tightly as we were escorted to the waiting room. The minutes stretched into hours. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. My mind kept drifting back to what Noah had said, the anger and confusion in his voice. His words echoed in my mind. "Whose blood do I have?" The truth felt closer than ever now. But how could I tell him? How could I tell either of them what I had done? The hospital lights were harsh and cold, making the night feel even more surreal. The waiting room felt like a prison of time, the minutes dragging into eternity as I sat beside Jason, both of us trapped in the limbo of uncertainty. My heart was racing, but the weight of everything that had happened, the truth I had kept buried for so long, was now impossible to ignore. I had always known this day would come, the day the lies would unravel. But I never thought it would be like this. Not like this. Jason's hand was clenched around mine, but his eyes were distant, lost in the worry over Noah. His face was pale, drawn with exhaustion, but he said nothing. We sat there, lost in the heavy silence, until finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the doctor appeared. "Mrs. Turner, Mr. Turner, we've stabilized your son. He's still in a coma, but we're doing everything we can. We need to run more tests to see if there's any brain activity, but he's in critical condition." I nodded numbly, the words not quite sinking in. I had been expecting bad news, but hearing it from the doctor made it all feel so much more real. Jason was still holding my hand, but his grip had slackened. I could see his shoulders trembling as he fought to keep himself together. For the next few hours, we waited, the tension between us building with each passing minute. The questions I had been avoiding were now too loud to ignore. How would I tell him? How could I confess the truth when everything was falling apart? Then, just as the clock struck 2 in the morning, Jason stood abruptly. "Clara," he said, his voice strained, "I can't keep waiting like this. Something's not right. Why is Noah acting this way? Why does he look at me like he doesn't even know me anymore?" His voice cracked, and I could hear the pain in it. Jason had always been the steady one, the one who held everything together, but now I could see the cracks in him, the way the walls he'd built around himself were starting to crumble. I looked up at him, my throat tight. I knew I couldn't lie anymore. Not to him, not to myself. "Jason," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the hum of the hospital machines. "There's something I have to tell you." He stepped closer, his eyes dark with confusion and fear. What is it, Clara? I swallowed, taking a deep breath. The words seemed to choke me, but I pushed them out one by one. The truth is, Noah is not your son. He's Ethan's. Ethan is his father, Jason. He always has been. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. For a long moment, Jason didn't move, didn't speak. His face was a mask of shock, his mouth slightly open, as if he couldn't process what I had just said. You're telling me that Noah isn't mine? Jason's voice was a hollow whisper. He took a step back, his expression a mix of disbelief and hurt. I nodded, the tears falling freely now. I'm so sorry, Jason. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you, but Before I could say anything else, the door to the waiting room burst open. Ethan stood there, panting, his face pale with worry. Clara, Jason, they just called me. It's Noah. How is he? Is he okay? Jason turned to him slowly, his face ashen. He's not okay, but I need to know something. Ethan, was he ever my son? Was Noah ever mine? Ethan's face went white. Jason, He stopped himself, his eyes darting between us, finally landing on me. You should have told him, Clara. Stop, Jason shouted, his voice raw with emotion. He took a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. Tell me the truth, Ethan. Was he yours? Ethan hesitated, his shoulders sagging under the weight of the unspoken truth. His eyes flickered between Jason and me, confusion slowly creeping into his expression. He looked lost, unsure of what to say. For a long moment, the silence between us felt like an eternity. Then, finally, Jason's voice broke through. Is he mine, Ethan? Jason's voice trembled with the weight of the question. Is Noah really my son? Ethan looked at Jason with a mix of guilt and sorrow, but the confusion in his eyes deepened. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't understand. What are you talking about, Clara? Ethan's gaze shifted to me, searching for an explanation. I closed my eyes, taking a steadying breath, but I knew there was no avoiding it anymore. The truth had to come out, and it had to come out now. Jason, I whispered, my voice trembling. There's something you need to know. Noah isn't your son. Jason's eyes widened, shock filling his face as he looked from me to Ethan. What do you mean? He asked, his voice strained. Noah is my son, Clara. What is this? I hesitated, my heart breaking with each passing second. Noah, he's Ethan's son, Jason. He always has been. Jason blinked, his face turning pale as the words sank in. His hand dropped from mine, and he staggered back a step, his eyes searching my face for any sign of a joke. But there was no joke. There was only the truth. Ethan's confusion deepened as he tried to process what I had just said. Wait, what? Clara, I don't understand. What do you mean Noah is mine? He stopped, his voice faltering as he turned to look at me, his face pale with disbelief. You told me he wasn't mine, that he was Jason's. I closed my eyes, feeling a heavy weight on my chest. I lied to you, Ethan. I lied to everyone. I never wanted anyone to know the truth. But Noah is yours. Ethan's expression twisted with anguish, his mind racing to make sense of everything. He turned to Jason, who was standing still, his face blank. Jason, But Ethan couldn't finish the sentence. The words were too much for him to process. Jason's voice finally cracked. So, all these years, Noah, he's my son, and you knew the truth, Ethan? Ethan's face was filled with guilt and sorrow. I didn't know what to do, Jason. I never meant for it to happen like this. But I swear, I never knew for sure. Jason took a shaky breath, the shock still consuming him. You never knew? But you. His voice was thick with disbelief. You've been with me, my brother, this whole time, and you never knew? Ethan shook his head, slowly, unable to answer the unspoken question. His voice was full of regret. I never wanted any of this. I never meant to hurt you. Jason took a step back, his eyes filling with pain. I can't even look at you right now. With that, Jason turned and walked out of the room, his footsteps heavy on the floor, leaving me and Ethan standing there in the silence of broken trust. Ethan reached for me, but I stepped back, my heart torn in so many directions. Clara, I didn't know, he whispered, his voice pleading. Please, you have to believe me. I never knew. I nodded slowly, but the pain in my chest didn't lessen. The truth was out, but it felt like a wound that would never heal. Ethan reached for me, but I stepped back, my heart torn in so many directions. Clara, I didn't know, he whispered, his voice pleading. Please, you have to believe me. I never knew. I nodded slowly, but the pain in my chest didn't lessen. The truth was out, but it felt like a wound that would never heal. And then suddenly a noise broke through the tension, sharp and unexpected, a loud thud, followed by hurried footsteps. I turned quickly to see Jason collapsed outside the door, his body crumpling to the floor in a heap. I froze. My heart stopped in my chest. I rushed out of the room, panic rising, but Pearl, my best friend, was already there, standing beside Jason. Her face was a mix of confusion and fear, her eyes wide as she looked at me. "Clara, what's happening? Is Jason?" But I couldn't hear her. I couldn't process anything except the sight of my husband, crumpled and unmoving. Nurses rushed past me, pushing Pearl aside as they worked to stabilize Jason. I barely registered anything around me. The only thing that mattered was the fact that Jason was slipping away. They worked quickly, but it was clear. The stress, the shock, everything that had happened, the confrontation with Ethan, the revelation about Noah, had taken its toll on him. His heart gave out, right there in the hospital hallway. As they wheeled him away, I collapsed against the wall, my head spinning, my world shattering in slow motion. I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. I just lost him. My husband, the man I had loved, was gone. The weight of everything, the lies, the secrets, the betrayals crashed down on me all at once. And Pearl, my best friend, the one I had leaned on for support through all of this, was still standing there, watching me with wide, nervous eyes. She was here with me now, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She wasn't here just for me. Pearl had always been the person I could trust. But now, as I watched her standing there, her expression twisted with concern and guilt, I realized something. Something I had ignored for too long. Pearl hadn't just been a friend. She had been hiding a secret. A secret that involved my husband's brother, Ethan. Pearl had been seeing Ethan behind my back. All this time, while I was drowning in lies, my best friend had been part of the web of betrayal that had torn my family apart. How long had this been going on? I couldn't even bring myself to ask. The betrayal was too much. Ethan hadn't known about Noah, but Pearl had known. She had known all along. And still, she stood here, pretending to be my friend, pretending to share my pain. A nurse came over, whispering urgently to me, "We need you to come with us. Jason's been taken to the ICU. We're doing everything we can, but it's critical." I nodded, still numb. I had to see him. I had to hold on to whatever I could of him, even if it was just his memory, the man I thought I knew. But as I walked down the sterile hallway, the cold truth settled in. Everything I had known, everything I thought was real, was slipping away. Jason was gone. And the family I had worked so hard to protect, the family I had kept so many secrets from, was crumbling before my eyes. The next few hours were a blur. They tried to revive him. They tried everything, but it was too late. Jason was gone. My heart shattered as the doctor came to me, his face grim. "Mrs. Turner, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but it's over." The words didn't even seem real. It felt like I was watching someone else's nightmare. And Pearl was still there, lurking in the background. Her eyes never left me as I struggled to process everything. And I finally understood. Her tears, her concern, they weren't for Jason. They weren't for me. They were for herself. Because Pearl had been the one to betray me. She had been the one to lie to my face, all while being involved with Ethan, Jason's brother. The days after Jason's death passed in a haze of grief and shock. I tried to reach out to my sons to find some way to hold on to them, but Noah, my firstborn, the one I had kept the biggest secret from, refused to speak to me. He blamed me for everything. The lies, the betrayal, the fact that his father was gone. Lily, my youngest, retreated into silence too. They both turned away from me, and I knew it was because of everything that had happened. The truth about Noah, the truth about Ethan, the lies I had told, it was too much for them. And Pearl? Pearl showed up at Jason's funeral. But not for him. She was there for Ethan, the man she had been secretly seeing behind my back. She stood by his side, her arm wrapped around him, her face betraying the guilt that she could no longer hide. A year passed, and I found myself alone. Ethan and Pearl had married in the months following Jason's death, and now they lived together, with their own life, their own family, as if nothing had happened. Pearl was now more of a mother to Noah than I ever could be. She visited him more often than I did, holding a place in his life that I had lost. They wouldn't forgive me. The walls I had built to protect them had collapsed, and now they wouldn't even look at me. I had lost everything: my husband, my best friend, and my children. All because of the secrets I kept, the lies I told, and the mistakes I couldn't take back. And now, I was alone. Alone in the house that once held so much love, now filled only with the echoes of the past. Alone with my grief, my guilt, and the truth that would never set me free. Do you think I got what I deserved? Or do you think I was just following my heart and protecting my son?